You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, on Twitter at Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak and Mr. Bob Harris. Gentlemen, it is week 9. Cannot believe it's week 9. What a long off season. We wait for the NFL season for seems like years sometimes. And here we are, week 9. Anyways, Mr. Harris, what is good in Albuquerque, New Mexico this evening, sir?
Getting a little wintry here, starting to feel a little bit of the nip in the air, which is always nice. Something I'm sure you felt for quite a while. Also, feeling like it's week 9 and the trade deadline expired and hardly anybody got traded. It was like so I'm starting to, there's draft Twitter, there's free agents. We got trade Twitter. It goes off the rails. Everyone hyping up all these potential moves, all the teams talking. I'm sure they were all talking. I'm sure everyone wanted to trade for every single Jet out there and just wouldn't pay up for them. But damn, it gets a little tiresome when nothing shows up. Leonard Williams got traded from the Jets to the Giants on Monday. Kenyon Drake from the Dolphins to the Cardinals, which we'll talk about more momentarily. Previously, we had a couple of wide receivers move. Mohamed Sanu to the Patriots. He played later last week. Showed signs of already earning Tom Brady's trust by catching a fourth down pass and converting it. And Emmanuel Sanders, who shows up in San Francisco with a reasonable knowledge of the offense, reasonable enough to immediately become the wide receiver 1 for that team, which is kind of wide receiver 1A, being that George Kittle is the wide receiver 1 there. But how disappointed, Kyle, that none of the big deals. We had rumors of Le'Veon Bell. We had all kinds of rumors out there. What's your take on the whole thing?
I mean, honestly, from everything I saw, it just seemed like the Jets wanted the mother load for every single asset they had. So I don't know. It's kind of on them. And when you saw, I don't know, by like midday how much they wanted for some of their players, didn't surprise me. I think it was Robbie Anderson who posted the I'm not leaving or whatever from Wolf of Wall Street. So honestly, we got that out of it, and that was pretty funny.
Right. Jamal Adams a little upset that, he was told he wouldn't be traded, and then they went behind his back.
Well, he didn't get traded. He got exactly what he wanted.
Right.
Just by the Jets' sheer greed.
Everybody's in one place. So we talked about the San Francisco and Arizona making deals, recent deals. In Arizona, kind of a necessity. We've got Chase Edmonds suffered a hamstring injury against the Saints last week while filling in for David Johnson, who's dealing with an ankle sprain that the previous week limited him to 3 snaps. So neither of those guys is going to play this week. We have Zach Zenner, the Kyle's golden child, on the roster. We have Alfred Morris, a guy that Justin is pretty partial to, I've been told. And my guy, Kenyon Drake. No. So we've got 3 backs there. Are any of them even remotely trustworthy in a game against the San Francisco 49er defense? Justin, go.
I don't think so. Not in this spot Thursday night. I mean, the Niners are for real. They really are. Even though Christian McCaffrey did his thing. He gets the football a ton, so the numbers.
He's for real also.
Yeah, he is. He certainly is. Look, I like Kenyon Drake, and I think he was underutilized on an awful Dolphins team for the last couple of years. He still finished RB 16 or 17, I want to say, in PPR last year. And again, underutilized, did not get a ton of touches. I think the kid's got skill, but misfortune. So the opportunity is there in Arizona. The playbook is difficult. Obviously, he's behind Chase Edmonds and David Johnson, who are hurt. This is not a good spot. But by default, somebody has to be their running back. And I think he's a shifty kid. Depending on the price, I have not thrown in the towel on Kenyon Drake by any means. And I think sometimes, and I've talked about this before, I think sometimes a change of scenery is good. And this could be a good change of scenery for Kenyon Drake. Unfortunately, he would be, if everybody's healthy, he would be number 3 on the depth chart tonight. But opportunity is here.
Doesn't it just kind of muddy, going forward, kind of just muddies the water for the Johnson and Edmonds owners, who thought, all of a sudden I'm getting a standalone play. Now maybe that's diluted enough to cause problems as well. And this seems like a rental. Kenyon Drake, a free agent after the season. probably, odds are, unless something crazy happens in Arizona, he moves on. Kyle, the other side of the ball, Matt Breida. Seems unlikely to play. Did not practice again Tuesday as we recorded this podcast. Raheem Mostert also hurting. Jeff Wilson suffered a stinger in the game, but Tevin Coleman went nuts. I almost said something else. And 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns on 11 carries. So Arizona's defense, pretty damn generous. What do you got in this one?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule Matt Breida out. I think he's been ruled out of 9 games, and he's played in all 9 of them. No, I mean, he is a guy who, his body, what he puts it through to play. But it does seem like if there were one he wouldn't play, it'd be this one. Yeah, if you're playing Thursday through Monday or your season-long matchups, A, Tevin Coleman has looked like great in limited work, given these split carries with Matt Breida and somewhat with Raheem Mostert. And B, those guys might not play. So yeah, you just, fire him up. I don't know what his cost is in the showdown slate, but I'm guessing it's probably not enough. Yeah, he's just a smash play this week for sure.
Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Dolphins. I'm telling you, the Dolphins are getting better. I'm going to talk that into existence because the bar is low. It's incremental, but they're better. But anyhow, I digress. The Steelers come away with James Conner dealing with an HC sprain in the shoulder. Benny Snell injured the knee. Haven't heard a lot on that, but we have heard Mike Tomlin suggested that maybe Connor could start the week limited and go from there. Jalen Samuel, however, is good to go. Practiced fully all last week, was listed as questionable. They obviously didn't feel the need to force him into the lineup going against the Dolphins. Justin, what would your confidence level be if there was no James Conner or Benny Snell and one Jalen Samuel this week against the Colts?
I am in. Opportunity. We talk about it at length. I was in this offseason on Jalen Samuels. Thought he was going to have a role. Even if James Conner was 100% healthy, they like the kid. I have seen Brian Westbrook comps. He is shifty. I can't wait to see what he could do with 15, 20 touches. He's 4K on DraftKings this week. Give me somewhat of a free square. I think the kid is a hell of a back. So I'm certainly in. And Mike, like you said, Mike Tomlin said he's good to go. So we like that, especially in DFS where he's 4K. I will have quite a bit of Jalen Samuels week 9.
So we have some quarterback changes this coming. One that will happen next week. The Cincinnati Bengals are switching to Ryan Finley. Look, they're 0-8. Not a lot of excitement there. Should have A.J. Green back with him at that time and a full cadre. Tyler Eifert suddenly arrives last week. In addition, we have Joe Flacco going down. Brandon Allen will be taking over there. Kyle, well, let's look at that one. Kyle, how fast will you be running away from any Broncos as you set lineups?
I mean, Joe Flacco is terrible. Is it really that much of anything but a lateral move? Joe Flacco isn't bottom 5 in yards per attempt, QB rating, touchdown rating. He really was just that bad. So for me, it's a pretty lateral move. The only thing that I would be concerned about is if they see a need to run the ball more, given that they have a player who's never thrown an NFL pass, as far as I know, under center. So if they end up running the ball more, yeah, at that point it does become a lot harder to start anybody but Courtland Sutton. But honestly, assuming their pass run split stays the same, I don't expect much to change. And if anything, it could be a minor upgrade.
Justin, let's quickly talk about the quarterback change that isn't being made. Probably should be. Good Lord. Mitchell Trubisky. It's just not happening there. But we did see Matt Nagy make an adjustment to his game plan, and he unleashed one David Montgomery. Do you have faith in the unleashing, and can we expect it to continue?
I do. I mean, the backfield was cloudy heading into the season. We know what Tariq Cohen is. Mike Davis signed there. Yeah, I mean, we got him round 3, round 4 in best balls. I'm in. I mean, it's a team that I think their identity is to kind of run the football. They want to run the football. Trubisky's been awful. I mean, we've seen some terrible quarterback play this year, and he is no exception. So I'm in on David Montgomery. I think they drafted him for a reason, as somewhat of an upgrade over Jordan Howard, and it was nice to see, as football fans and owners, the kid get a boatload of work, and it'll just be interesting to see if he can do it week to week now. But as we know, I mean, I think the more you get the football, the more comfortability you get. And I think that's something we need to see on a consistent basis with a kid like David Montgomery. We're seeing it in Oakland with Josh Jacobs, and he's played the part very well.
Kyle, before we jump into the DFS slates this week and go through our positional players of interest, I wanted to ask you, due to your geographical location, about those Cleveland Browns. It appears to me that the view is widely becoming more popular that Freddie Kitchens is not quite ready for prime time, and that the Browns themselves are struggling because of it. Is it because of Freddie Kitchens, or is it because they're a bunch of prima donnas, more interested in passing out goat hair shoes to their idols and they are playing football? Sorry, man, I went off a little bit.
I do think many people have said this, and the more I watch, the more I kind of agree that Todd Monken should have a larger role in this offense, just in terms of
the
play
Mad
calling.
Monken.
But
yeah.
I do think they've had a pretty brutal schedule, and now it eases up. After the Broncos, and actually it's got like a few more weeks to go, but after the Broncos and the Bills, they get the Steelers, the Dolphins. They still have to play the Bengals twice. Unfortunately, one of those is Week 17, so for us fantasy folks, I guess like season long, it doesn't really matter. But they get the Cardinals, the Bengals twice. They get the Dolphins, the Steelers twice still. Like, those are, I mean, the best is yet to come for them, but I do think regardless of how it turns out, regardless of how they turn it around, it's still going to be a disappointing season for the expectations. And I think it's a good time to buy Browns players just because of the schedule alone, but also because of the talent that they have, like Odell Beckham. I think Jarvis Landry has perennially been underrated as a guy who just, like, no matter what you think about him, he just puts up fantasy points. So for me, it's a good time to buy anybody but Nick Chubb, who probably is valued fairly given how many
right, man. And look, I mean, Freddie Kitchens, if you're listening, and I know you are, man, give that guy the ball more. He'll hold on to it, I promise.
Yeah,
and he will cure a lot of your problems.
He's the real deal.
With the rest of that offense. He really is a great player. Quickly then, Kyle, one last note on this. Freddie Kitchens, one and done, yay or nay?
I doubt it. I hope not. I hope he gets more of a chance. Especially, I hope they can maybe build a better offensive line around Baker, because he's gotten pressured so incredibly much. I don't think so, but I mean, if they play like they have in the first half and the second half of the season, that would be, at that point, you have to start considering with that as Browns management.
All right, 4 teams on the bye this week: Atlanta, Cincinnati on the bye. We have who else? New Orleans and the Los Angeles Rams. All off this week. We've got a London game with an early Sunday kickoff for those of us on this side of the pond. It'll be a 9:30 a.m. kickoff on the East Coast. We've got a not great Thursday night game in the 49ers and the Cardinals. Monday night, not that great of a game with the Dallas Cowboys against the New York Giants. So let's look at the DFS slate, starting with you, Justin. Give me quarterbacks that I must have.
Yeah, Kyle said it earlier, the other day, he said it was not the prettiest slate, the main slate on DraftKings, who does sponsor this show. It's 10-game slate. If I'm going to pay up and I feel comfortable, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers on the road, 6,900 against the Chargers. He has been every bit of Aaron Rodgers that we are used to, 16 touchdowns, 2 picks. They got some balance despite his weaponry and the wide receiving crowd. Devontae Adams has been hurt. Geronimo Allison has been a no-show. I thought he was going to take on that somewhat of a Jordy Nelson role. Has not, but it has been vintage Aaron Rodgers, and it's been vintage Russell Wilson as well. But I'm going to humor you, and don't laugh, because I know that you have been a Derek Carr advocate, and we haven't given up on him. And I think Derek Carr is firmly in play this week. At home against the Lions, who have been hemorrhaging touchdowns through the air. I love the price of Derek Carr. I will be in. It's Tyrell Williams back. Our boy Darren Waller, who I adore for numerous reasons, is in the equation. They have balance in the backfield with Josh Jacobs. 5,500, Derek Carr. The matchup is just spectacular. I think this kid has confidence. I think he's a pro. And I think he's showing that, AB, with all the nonsense that went on with Antonio Brown, the kid has persevered, has showed adversity. So it's going to be Derek Carr. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. And I probably have some Matthew Stafford, even though we love Matthew Stafford at home. It's a great game to stack that Lions-Raiders game. It's Tuesday night, but Matthew Stafford has been fantastic as well. He's primarily fantastic at home, although we did go to Kansas City week 4 and perform well. So Stafford, Carr, Aaron Rodgers tonight, and I may have a sprinkle of Russell Wilson at home against the Bucks.
Aaron Rodgers, did somebody put Gronk in charge of the pricing?
Right, 6,900. That's right.
All right, Kyle. Anyone you like at that spot that you're crazy about that Justin did not touch on?
So paying down this week is going to be interesting because there are a lot of backups starting, but more importantly, for me, it's Matt Moore. Just given how the Vikings have a good defense, but also their offense forces other teams to just go like balls to the wall to try and score points because man, their offense looks good now. They are the third, like teams have attempted the third most passes against them as a defense. They're like right in the middle of the pack in terms of points allowed as a defense opposing quarterbacks. And his weapons, I mean, like, it's very possible that, like, no player, I guess, at his price range, which there aren't a ton of players at his price range, but no player that you're paying below 5,500 has the weapons that can basically make his day in one play with Tyreek Hill, with McCole Hardman. Sammy Watkins is probably bad, but Travis Kelce is good. So, yeah, like, I think he's probably the best value on the slate. Another guy paying very far down is Daniel Jones. We saw last week the ceiling he has. He had 32 points last week and is now 5,200. He's like exclusively a tournament play for me because his range of outcomes like does include like this season alone an 8-point game, like his fourth start. So for me, he's got like 30 plus point upside, which he's hit twice this season, and he's got below 15 point downside, which he's hit in every other game. And that's sort of like very few quarterbacks seem to have that wide range of outcomes, but he's one of them. So for me, he's a great tournament play, but I probably won't be looking to him in cash. For me in cash, it's Matt Moore, or I'll just jump back to Deshaun Watson. Because Jacksonville's defense isn't what it used to be, and Deshaun Watson is just a god at 700 or 7,000. I think he's still a great value, just like he was last week.
He is quite a remarkable player. So toss me some running backs, Kyle.
Yeah, running back. Oh man, everything on this slate is weird. Running back, if you want to get one of the studs, like Chris McCaffrey, 10K. I can't fathom paying that much. He has to score 30 points at that point, like to really hit like above average value. For me, I'm looking down at 7K to Aaron Jones and 7,700 to Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell getting all the work in this offense, just really struggling to do much. But if there's anything that will help you cure your offensive woes, it is a visit to the Miami Dolphins. They've been crushed by every position, but especially running back. I think it's finally time. I hope. Maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I hope it's finally time. He hasn't gotten used a ton in the passing game in the past few weeks, but given that it's Le'Veon Bell, I think it's time for Le'Veon Bell.
I have it on good authority, the Dolphins are getting better. Justin, hit me up with some running backs, maybe some that aren't playing the Dolphins this week.
Yeah, I guess you're going to have to play Dalvin Cook, or you're going to have to play Christian McCaffrey. It's nearly impossible to play both of them. And if there was a gun to my head, I'm probably going to take Christian McCaffrey for 500 more, even though he's just vintage Todd Gurley money. 10K is a lot of dough. I don't feel the necessity. I think dollar for dollar, Nick Chubb is the play against the Denver Broncos. If there's any semblance of fantasy continuity and goodness on this Browns team, and it's Nick Chubb. He looked terrific at Gillette Stadium the other day. You almost felt bad for Baker Mayfield. It's amazing to me that the Patriots drafted Sony Michel in front of Chubb. There was some skepticism because of his knees, but Nick Chubb is by far and away the better running back between him and Sony Michel, even though and your buddy Matt Waldman touted Nick Chubb hardcore. And
just based on his skill set and what he did in college, he had him ranked ahead of Saquon Barkley coming out of class.
Which is, he's definitely not better than Saquon Barkley, but he stuck to it, planted his flag, and it's not even close. I mean, Sony Michel to me tonight he's off as just a regular guy. So Chubb, to think the Patriots could have had Nick Chubb is just unbelievable because he looked terrific despite the fumbles last week. Jalen Samuels at 4K. If I'm promised he gets the ball 15, 20 times, I am in at 4K. For certain. I think this kid's a promising young back. I know the Steelers love him. Surprised we haven't seen more volume from him earlier. I mentioned the Oakland Lions game. I do have a little bit of interest in Josh Jacobs. I don't love his price at 6,500. I mean, that's crazy, but he showed us some across the pond against the Bears. I mean, he went berserk, 26 carries, 123 yards, a couple touchdowns. Do that against the Bears. You can do that against anybody. And he's gotten the ball damn near 20 times every game. We love that. They got what they bargained for in Oakland with him. So, again, it's only Tuesday night. I'm not going crazy. Mark Walton tonight is popping up. Bob said the Dolphins are on the up and up. I like that divisional game at home. Tonight it's McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook. I'm going to have to probably flip a coin there. I do like the Green Bay backfield, but it's kind of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. They both have roles, Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, Jacobs and Jalen Samuels, and I will spend it, have more fun in the wide receiver department.
Yeah, I said they're getting better. I didn't say they were good. Well,
incrementally.
Yeah, low bar. But I do agree. I think Walton is a guy that's maybe worth keeping an eye on, and maybe the total Kyle Dvorchak free square over the course of time. Kyle, I would like your impressions of the wide receivers.
Another bad one. They're all bad this week. It's going to be a tough week for cash, but I do think, depending on how things go, Chris Godwin is in play. The Seattle game, I think, in my opinion, there are two games in terms of game totals that are heavily stackable this week. You've got the Seattle Seahawks playing Tampa Bay. I believe it's in Seattle. Just a wildly high total at 51.5, and the other one being Detroit Oakland at 50.5. And I don't know, maybe I'm just pessimistic on Oakland continually, but I don't think they're the type of team. Just their offense, I don't know. I'm not ready to buy in on Oakland entirely yet. I think they might have some good values like Derek Carr, but I don't think they're the team that is as conducive to 50+ point game total as opposed to Seattle and Tampa Bay, who both don't have good defenses anymore. Seattle anymore, Tampa probably ever. And they both have amazing offenses too, especially with Russell Wilson being the quarterback of one, will always put up good performances, and then Jameis always capable of putting up great performances. He kind of has some downside. But Chris Godwin, I just can't see. Yeah, I guess Mike Evans last week, it seems like every other week one of these guys goes off, but Chris Godwin's still just continually being underpriced. Last week still got 8 targets, just wasn't able to convert as much, but he had 3 games of 125 yards or more in a row before that. Another one 2 weeks before that, 120. He's getting the volume. He's in a high game total, and I think he's going to be low owned. Maybe that's the only reason I stay away from him in cash, is just because you kind of have to pay up at running back this week. But in tournaments, I think I'm going to be stacking this game heavily, and it's Chris Godwin. Another guy, Mike Williams, kind of did all right last week. I think Keenan Allen on a snap count was a bit of a rumor that didn't end up being true, but he still got 6 targets. He is, since returning, I think in week 5, he is number 1 in the NFL at air yards, over 500 in that span. Nobody else over 500. So for me, Mike Williams, I'm just going to keep buying the air yards until I finally give up, go broke, or make a ton of money. So for me, Mike Williams at that price. And then finally, Curtis Samuel, another guy, just keep buying the air yards, except Curtis Samuel, 4,300 is super cheap. Last week, 11 targets. 2 weeks before that, 6 targets each. It's bound to happen for him, much like Mike Williams. Just give these guys who are prolific playmakers, Mike Williams deep, Curtis Samuel, just an incredible athlete. Give these guys enough touches and it'll happen eventually. So for me, that's kind of where I'm looking at.
Kyle, before I leave you, before I go back to Justin here, just what are you doing about the Detroit backfield? It was a little curious usage last week. Is there anything there you trust, or is it just are they all cheap enough that you're just tossing a dart if you're playing them anyway?
I don't really see a ton of reason to play any of the backs at this point. I guess you can make an argument for Trey Carson, given that he looked like the lead back. But for me, I don't know. I guess there are better values on the slate and your floor for any of these guys. Trey Carson, 3,300. I guess he has to be in consideration just because his price is so low. But your floor for any of these guys is really 2 to 3 points. It's just your floor is so low, and I don't think you get a ton of upside by playing any of them, except maybe Trey Carson on a points per dollar argument. So I guess as the week goes on, if we get any more positive indicators on him, I'd consider it because his price is next to not it's basically minimum. But outside of that, I have trust issues as it is, and I was burned last week a bit by Ty Johnson, so definitely not trusting anyone here.
Yeah, I blame me for that, but that's a different story. Justin, the wide receivers that you like, those that Kyle did not name, give me somebody unique and different, a unicorn, if you will.
Kenny Golladay, dollar for dollar, 7,700, loading up on this Lions team with Stafford. Kenny Golladay, I had him ranked pretty high this year. He's something special to watch. Although Marvin Jones had that big week, the backfield is the curse of Barry Sanders and Zach Zenner as well. Even when Kerryon Johnson was healthy, he didn't get the football as much as I think we would have liked to see him. So I'm skeptical, to say the least, about that backfield. So Kenny Golladay up top for me for certain. Kyle mentioned a couple of these stacks. I mean, the Bucs wide receivers are projecting well. We were on Godwin, or I was, until about 12 o'clock last Sunday. Got off him. Also got off Cooper Kupp. Still profited, but that was bad. Godwin had a dud, and it was the Mike Evans show. So probably go back to Godwin this week. I do like that game. Tyler Lockett is projecting as the highest point per dollar wide receiver that I can see. You're going to spend $7,500 on him, but I think that's a game to stack. And also DK Metcalf, $5,700, kind of coming into his own. Didn't see a ton of yards last week or receptions, but got in the end zone a couple times. I like the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers in a potential shootout. It'll be interesting to see if Adam Thielen plays. It says that he's going to. And then you'll have to, it's kind of splitting hairs with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen there. But I think we're seeing things kind of turn into what we know or knew that Stephon Diggs could be in that breakout year, Kyle. And the squeaky wheel certainly gets the grease, and that's what we're seeing here. Juju Smith-Schuster, 6,300. Saw a splash last night. I mean, we know what this kid is. He is elite. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, and I think from here on out, we're going to see the best of him. So I'm going to take that at 6,300. You can also talk me into some Odell Beckham at 6,600. I know it would be a tournament play, but a damn good one. Chris Harris will be chasing him around in Denver. I just think that the Browns are in this kind of panic mode. Nothing to lose. The hell with it. And sometimes that translates into fantasy points. If I'm paying way down, I suppose you could talk me into Mike Williams. Like Kyle said, unfortunately, air yards do not translate into fantasy points. Sometimes you end up with air, and Mike Williams has yet to have a touchdown, so a lot of air in that department. But you got to keep working that right hook, and eventually the air yards will translate. So that's where I'm at. Early Tuesday night. Things are going to change. More revelations throughout the week, but it's certainly this week, which is a bleak week on the main slate. It's a fun week to look at in terms of wide receivers.
Dive into the sea of mediocrity then and give me a couple of tight ends that I have to play.
Tonight it's going to be Zach Ertz, 47. That's based on price. I know there are a couple of tight ends in Philadelphia, and we knew this was going to happen this season. And they're both being used, and they're both projected well this week. So I suppose you could talk me into Zach Ertz at 4,700. It hasn't been good for him the last 3 weeks, but this is one of those spots where you could jump on him in a tournament and kind of separate yourself from the crowd. 4,700. This is a guy historically is a 6K tight end. He's up around Zach Ertz land. So I will have myself some Zach Ertz. The water is murky in the sea of mediocrity. I do like a Travis Kelce up top. I think he's being underutilized as well. I think this is a spot you could use him in tournaments. To be honest, I'm not 100% confident on any tight end on this slate. Gun to my head, I'm probably going to pay way down, and players like Noah Fant at 3K will jump out at me. But there's not a lot of allure. This is when I talk about the sea of mediocrity. This is precisely what I'm talking about. It's a bleak position. The Travis Kelce's of the world start looking like Shannon Sharp. Greg Olsen is projecting well, and I could suppose you could talk me into Cameron Brate based on his price, but I mean that's how bad it is. When you start talking about Cameron Brate and Noah Fant, it is mediocrity to say the least. But again, things will change. Tonight it's Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce.
Well, we don't advocate violence on this program, so I'll not be holding a gun to anybody's head. I might twist arms, but no gun holding. Kyle, so explain to me why Justin has left the best tight end in the NFL, Darren Fells, off his list.
Well.
Oh, because it's London, damn it.
I did that too early in the show that I had to cut out off the main slate, so we can hop into. Maybe I'll leave it in because we talked about it.
Yeah, why not? The hell with it.
Yeah, less editing for me. Perfect. I'll cross it off my list. That's the reason why he left easily the best tight end in the NFL, as we all know, Darren Fells, off of his list because he's off the main slate. So for me, not best tight end in the NFL, but a good value, 3,500. Greg Olsen probably more of a tournament play because he's had a pretty, I think he's at a 0-point floor at this point. But he also has, multiple games of 5+ targets this season. I think he's a fine play, but for me, I think Justin did actually cover most of them. Zach Ertz at 4,700. I think he's still he's number 7 in tight ends this season. He's still top 5.
Doesn't say much.
He's still, yeah, I know, it doesn't say a ton, but his price is 4,700. That's really where it gets much more interesting. Being top 7 at that price is fine. He's top 5 in air yards, targets, expected points. And 1, he hasn't really scored. He scored 1 touchdown and all that volume. And 2, he just hasn't been that efficient. But at that price, he's still Zach Ertz in terms of volume. I don't know if he's Zach Ertz in terms of efficiency anymore, but in terms of volume, he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and that's what we like to buy, and at 4,700, it's the best. Noah Fant, 3K. Last week, he played 60 of 73 snaps, got 8 targets, caught 5 of them. It just didn't really... The interesting thing was he was one of the highest A-dot tight ends up until last week, where he had a sub 2 or sub 5 A-dot. So I think I tend to think, given his playmaker, Noah Fant is just a dynamic playmaker. He was in college, and I expect him to be in the NFL. I think we'll see that A-dot rise, hopefully. So I think he's probably one of the better values as well. And I think in tournaments, running him back with Nick Chubb is a really good strategy, in my mind at least.
Give me the defenses not named New England Patriots that you're playing this week.
They can't keep scoring touchdowns. It can't keep happening every week. Oh, my God.
Yes, it can.
Someone has to stop them. I can't. God.
Nobody's going to stop them, Kyle.
I know. They play.
They're incredible. They're the
AFC.
offense, basically.
Are you kidding me? They probably play the Jets 9 more times and the Dolphins 3 more times.
That's true.
All right, so my defenses, I am looking at Washington defense. I mean, they're not the worst defense in points scored. They're not Miami bad. Miami, I don't care who they play. They just seem wholly incapable of scoring points, although it looked all right in the Monday Night Showdown. But
I've heard they're getting better. I don't know if
I've heard rumors, whispers yelling loudly through my headphones. No, but Washington has actually been at least capable of putting up points. Now they play Buffalo. I just think at 1,800, it was basically, I've been streaming, if you want to call it that in DFS, whoever plays the Texans, because Deshaun Watson gets sacked a lot, and even if they score points, you just get a lot of sack equity, but their opponent always seems to be 1,500, 1,700. Washington is that rule this week against Buffalo. Josh Allen just cannot stop turning the ball over, and you love it as defense at 1,800. So I'm probably going there, and then I think you can always basically just target these backup quarterbacks. Cleveland defense with Myles Garrett, run it back with Nick Chubb. Basically, I just like Nick Chubb, and any way I can just increase leverage of my Nick Chubb shares. Cleveland defense, Noah Fant, I think are both fine plays to stack with Nick Chubb.
Justin, defenses of choice, please.
I like the Carolina Panthers, 2,800 at home against Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. I mean, this is a defense that's doing it all, 10 picks. They're forcing fumbles, 30 sacks. I like the price, and I certainly like them at home. Unfortunately, the Pats are not on this slate. Neither are the Niners, which, by the way, I used the Niners last week, and that worked out well. It was tough for me to get off the Patriots, and I was scared, but the Niners were just as good, if not better, against, coincidentally, the Carolina Panthers. I also will take some interest in the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2,400 at home against Jacoby Brissett and the Colts, who are just getting it done, just barely getting it done. But like the Panthers, and there's a gritty Steelers defense. We love them at Heinz Field. They're doing it all. And Mike Tomlin always seems to have his defense prepared. They generated quite a few fantasy points last night against the Dolphins, but this is a team, 19 points, 11 points, 14 points. We love this. And for 2,400, I'm not a guy that pays way down. I try not to because it can get scary, but I'm pretty confident about the Pittsburgh Steelers at home against the Andrew Luckless Colts. Even though the Colts are a good football team. They are a good football team, but I think they're a lot better at home.
Yeah, honestly, I think we have to quit calling them the Andrew Luckless Colts because they're just Jacoby Brissett's Colts. Surprising.
Good story. Great story.
It really is. I mean, a guy that, we talked about this heading into the season, and I felt like the Colts had a lot of confidence in him because of all the snaps he got because, Andrew Luck wasn't working. But it's been very solid, very impressive. So now we have, 3 New England quarterbacks leading successful teams. That's odd. I think Justin likes that more than I care to. I won't bring it up again.
A lot of buzz around here about Tom Brady leaving. His house is on the market. His trainer's house is on the market. He's going to be a free agent. He can go wherever he wants. A lot of talk about Tom Brady potentially leaving. I can't envision it happening. Just doesn't seem right. But we've seen it. We've seen it with the greats. Joe Montana went to Kansas City. Peyton Manning went to Denver. I mean, we've seen these crazier things have happened. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
We'll be watching for that in like the next year.
Sure.
This week, what else we'll be watching for is Patrick Mahomes. There's a little talk that maybe he can, somehow get back this week against the Vikings. I have serious doubts about that. Andy Reid said on Tuesday that, he'll practice more this week, but the medical staff will make the decision. And that's a good thing because if Patrick Mahomes is making it, he would have been playing last week. So we'll see how that all plays out. Otherwise, I think we've set them up, everyone. Time for y'all to knock it out of the park.
Yeah,
go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, that is our show. I like that ending, Bob. So for myself, at Kyle Tweets here, for Bob, at Football Diehards, and for Justin, at Justin Lonero. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next week. And, of course, you can always check out all the stuff we put out at footballdiehards.com. Justin has Digging the Crates. I have a show Wednesday and a show Sunday with former Millie Maker winner Bobby Gomez. Bob, I think you have probably like a small little article or something, too, going on. So,
All right,
everybody, we'll catch you next week.